Okay, you're here because you might be confused. I don't really know. You are sick of your water. You're on well water and you are sick of it. And you've heard maybe chlorine injection, pure, clear, what's the right system? So I'm going to make it clear for you today. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the different types of chlorinators in 2023 that are available online and or installed by a dealer in your area. Now, we're going to evaluate them and weigh out the pros and cons so that you guys can make your own decision for you and your family. Again, you're here because you either have bacteria in your water, you got a bad smell in your water, or you got color like orange or black or yellow, and you need something to make that water better. And what you realize is chlorine injection is what cities do all over the country, and so you're wondering, how do I do that on my private well? Well, we're here for you. Today, we have three different types of systems on the market. First of all, there's the 1980s or 70s style. That's this guy over here. So what we have to remember is that you have a pressure tank. The pressure tank is actually designed to draw the water up out of the earth and bring it into your home. And that's what this guy is. Half of this is air and the bottom half is water. And so on the way into the water system, into this tank, we would used to inject chlorine into a tea like this, and this is an injection point, and we inject the chlorine right into this tea. That then, and by the way, would use a pump system like this to actually draw chlorinated chlorine out of this tank and push it right into this pressure tank. Now, that in the 70s and 80s was good, but when you oxidize iron or sulfur out of the water, this plumbing pipe would get clogged. And so we would have to do a lot of plumbing work in order to plug those over time. Also, the problem with a design like this is it's using the pressure switch of your well system to turn on the pump. So every time this little pump or the well turns on, it also activates the power on the pump. Now, the problem with that is it's an inaccurate way of dosing because we're waiting until that pump turns on and then turns off. But you're still using water. So the bladder too goes up and down inside of there. So it's a variable. The water level in there is always a variable. So you always had to overdose chlorine or put excess chlorine in there. That's actually why we wanted to run the water into a carbon filter to take out that excess chlorine. But buyer beware. If you're watering the lawn, it's always chlorinating and you get way too much chlorine and it ruins the carbon filter material in there. So you got to remember that. That's why it's just a really, really bad design. In fact, in the Illinois, the Department of Public Health has outlawed that design. You cannot inject anything before the pressure tank because it is an inaccurate way of dosing it. Now, the products are still sold online, so we want to make sure you're aware of them. They run, I don't know, maybe $2,000, $2,500, so it's a low-cost budget concept. If you're on a budget, that might be something you want, but you need to weigh out the variables for yourself. Do you really want to worry about having problems with too much chlorine and maybe burning out your clothes, bleaching your blue jeans when you don't want them to? Those things were happening, and you spent a lot of extra money rebedding this carbon filter on a regular basis. Buyer beware. On any one of these systems, especially this one, companies would run copper piping from here to the carbon filter. That's a major no-no. Copper in regards to the chlorine system or the pure clear system is a major no-no. You cannot do that because chlorine will eat the copper and give you copper poisoning. So it's only after the carbon filter can you switch back to copper. So only after the carbon filter can you switch back to copper. So that buyer beware, you need to be aware of that. Now, that inaccurate way of dosing, yes, like I said, it's still available. The evolution, though, of that was, okay, that's not working. Let's figure something else out. Well, companies came out with what's called a flow switch design. That's where there's a metal arm inside, paddle, and as the water turns on, if the water's flowing through here, it would push the paddle, touch another metal connector, and that would create a circuit, and that would activate the outlet. That outlet would activate a pump and would put it in a big mixing tank like this. And that's because we need a lot of time for the chlorine to mix with the water in there. And so we would still inject the chlorine through a injection T on the way to this tank. So it'd go from the pressure tank into the T into this contact tank. Now, that saved us a lot of problems. We had a lot more success getting rid of the bacteria, and we had less service calls. However, we still had service calls. We now went from maybe having 6 a year to 3 or 4 a year, because this one would stick on or stick off. So we'd have to constantly disassemble this thing and clean it out. It was a real pain in the butt, but the water was good. So it's a trade-off. Customers were like, all right, I'll just have you out 3, 4, 5 times a year. That's okay. At least I'm not dealing with all that orange and rotten egg smell, and I don't smell like rotten eggs as I go to work. So it was a benefit. But one day at our company, we were doing hundreds of these and hundreds of these. And one day we got a phone call where someone called us and said their daughter's being rushed to the emergency room. Why was that? Well, the paddle got stuck on. It dosed chlorine, all the chlorine out of here, put it into the contact tank. It was too much for the carbon filter to handle. And what happened is the child opened her eyes under the water and actually burned her eyes. Thankfully, she was okay. Thankfully, they just flushed her eyes. But it caused us to talk to manufacturers and come up with a better solution. So now, this flow switch design is still on the market. We call it the 1980s or 90s design, but anyone can assemble it for you because they just put carbon inside of a tank and a filter valve and a big tank and a flow switch with a pump. Now, those systems, they usually run around $3,500 to maybe $4,000. You have to decide if that's for you. If you're handy Andy, that's my name, that might actually help you and you might be willing to do it. Or you might want to look at the Pure Clear chlorinator. So the Pure Clear chlorinator came to a different concept. This Pure Clear system, actually, we took it and we talked with a major manufacturer that actually builds all the static mixers in the world, or not all of them, but most of them. This static mixer actually mixes the chlorine with the water. We also have the injection point on top of this head. So this patented technology actually allows the chlorine to be injected and allow gravity to pull it down. So we no longer have those T's that would get clogged up. So that's important to understand. We want to eliminate all those phone calls. Well, this thing did it. We're injecting the chlorine, mixing it, diffusing it, spraying the water against the side of the tank, and all that iron or sulfur would fall to the bottom of the tank and would flush that out once a year. This static mixer is significant because it also means we don't need a gigantic tank in your basement where the water was just lumbering along. So now we're able to still kill the bacteria, oxidize the colors and the odors, the iron, the sulfur out of the water, and yet with a much smaller footprint. From there, the chlorinated water leaves this and goes into the carbon filter. Now, this is not a regular carbon filter like these guys. This is a computerized large tank with special media in there to help remove the colors, the odors, and the organics like sulfur and iron out of the water. The computer system has what's called exact chlorine dosing. That's very important to understand. We're injecting just the right amount of chlorine into the water because why? We've got a turbine in there that's counting exactly the gallons, and then we're able to trigger it much more accurately. As a result, we got a system that basically means we have to come out once a year. And that's actually what our goal is we want to be able to come out once a year to help you and your family get good clean water. Because again, what we like to stress to everybody is that it's important that you are the water authority of your family. The EPA, the Department of Health, says, yes, you're in charge. No one's going to go knock on your door and say, hey, how's the water at your house? Is it safe? Is it good to drink? What exactly is going on with it? So it's your job. Our job is to be there right next to you. Our job is to stand there next to you and actually coach you through what you need to do. And that's where we do want to come out once a year. The injection point, the pump, the band on the pump, they have to be replaced by manufacturer's requirements once a year. So what we do is we come out once a year, we change these tubes, we test the water, we check the integrity of everything, we lube up what needs to be lubed up, we check the diagnosis, we test the water. It's a lot of things we do once a year, rather than multiple times throughout the year in systems that are actually inaccurate in dosing the chlorine into water. So if the Pure Clear system is right for you, by the way, on any of these you can switch them to hydrogen peroxide. So if you don't have bacteria in your water and you want to use hydrogen peroxide, that can be done. But if this is something that you really want to get for your house and you have more further questions, contact Angel Water. You can reach us at the web at angelwater.com. My name is Drew. I'm here to serve you, and our whole goal today was to be able to explain to you the pros and cons of the inexpensive systems that you have from the 1970s and 80s design to the 1990s and the 2000 with the newest system on the market made by Pure Clear. We hope that we've done a good job for you. Look forward to serving you.